In this video, I would like to discuss the article written by historian Carla Pastana titled "The Quaker Executions as Myth and History." The article discusses the execution of four Quaker missionaries by the Puritan-controlled Massachusetts Bay Colony that took place between 1659 and 1661. Quaker missionaries began arriving in Massachusetts in 1656 with the goal of spreading the news of the imminent end of the world and exhorting everyone to accept the truth of the light within. The Puritan leaders greeted these uninvited guests with horror, passing increasingly repressive laws intended to drive away the self-proclaimed publishers of the truth. The Puritans of New England viewed the Quakers as wild sectaries deluded by the devil, and they understood Quakerism as the latest satanic plot to undermine their godly efforts to establish the true churches of Christ in the New World. When whipping, mutilation, and sentences of banishment failed to contain the Quaker threat, the authorities threatened to execute any banished missionaries who returned to the colony. Many missionaries would defy the law, and four of them would die for their transgression. 1659, the court sentenced to death Marmaduke Stevenson, a Yorkshire farmer, William Robertson, a young London resident, and Rhode Islander Mary Dyer, a former Boston resident and a staunch supporter of Puritan religious reformer Anne Hutchinson. Dyer was reprieved, although she was made to accompany her companions to the gallows and to stand with a halter around her neck as they were hanged. William Ledra of Barbados became the last Quaker martyr in 1661. Later in that same year, England's King Charles II sent a message reminding the colony that they had no power to inflict the death penalty, commanding that they stop immediately. He also demanded the release of all imprisoned Quakers and, if necessary, have them sent to England for trial. This message brought a definite end to Quaker persecution in Massachusetts Bay. The myth that the author is referring to stemmed from these Quaker executions as they became the contested ground on which the descendants of both adversaries fought out the meaning of their histories. For the Quakers, the martyrdoms were central to their emerging self-image. The four deaths in Massachusetts provided the sect with an inspiring past that helped to foster the commitment of later generations of Quakers. For the Puritans, the executions were more problematic, although no less important to their efforts to create a mythic history. While Quakers could go on the offensive, the Puritans were forced to take up a more defensive position in order to fend off the increasingly effective Quaker attacks on their self-image. After early attempts to justify the executions by criticizing the Quakers, the Puritans eventually limited themselves to trying to discredit the Quaker version of events. According to Professor Pastana, the clash between the Quakers and the Puritans is as easy to understand as it is horrific. The Quaker executions have come to rank with the Salem witchcraft scare as prime examples of Puritan intolerance. By 1774, even native sons such as John Adams perceived the Quaker execution as a blot on the history of Massachusetts. In recreating their own past in terms of the powerful images of martyrdom and persecution, the Quakers successfully cast their Puritan adversaries in the shameful role of persecutors. That stigma remains with the Puritans to this day. According to historian Charles E. Park, the Puritan treatment of the Quakers is essentially unforgivable. According to Park, when every reason has been weighed, every extenuation advanced, and every possible excuse thrown into the scale, they stand guilty of actions that cannot be defended. Thank you.